wanted to talk about the intro track for our new podcast.
That was so natural. So I heard you. Yeah, no, I do, Luke. I don't know. You know what? This isn't for the pod. Cut this out.
Yeah. This is just between us. No one gets to hear our ramblings about intro music.
A genuine conversation, Luke. Do you have any ideas for what the intro music? Because it has to have an intro song, or otherwise our friends aren't going to come back and listen to it again. That's the only thing that gets them hooked.
It does need to have an intro song, and from the way I see it, the Fast and Furious franchise has a number of songs written specifically for it, which are usually in the end credits. So there's one for this specific movie, The Fast and the Furious, but there's also one for Too Fast, Too Furious.
Now, Luke, can I give you my suggestion? There's a song that's very special to you and very special to me that came out not so long ago.
Okay.
And I think... Are you already...
I'm not sure what you're going on about, but I'm along for the ride.
So, Vin Diesel started a music career.
Oh, he did indeed.
And there's a song called Feel Like I Do, TM. And I think just the start of that, they're just like, or maybe, like just the beginning until we hear a little bit of Vin, and then it fades out into our good podcast that we do.
That would be a lovely intro song, and fitting, seeing as it is the culmination of his career up until this point.
Right, there's a kind of cyclic nature to it. It's like the end and the beginning. Like, I kind of like it. Now, I'm not sure about the legality of it.
I wouldn't say it's the end.
Oh yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't want to preemptively.
Maybe the end of the beginning.
The end of the beginning. And now he's on to phase 2 of his career. That's actually not far from. Well, no, this is probably more like phase 4, and we'll discuss that later. I have found some evidence that there have been previous phases.
Yes, there have indeed been phases of his career, and who knows? Maybe he's in his prime right now. Or we haven't even seen his prime yet.
We haven't even seen it. Well, yeah. Now, Luke, it is surprising how poignant that's going to be with a thing I'll bring to you later. But for now, I think intro music plays. And it's like, lovely. Such a banger.
I might just cut you in for that part.
No, please, please don't do that. And then put in and fade in.
Welcome to Twin Diesel, the podcast about the elegant tapestry that veteran actor Vin Diesel has weaved throughout his career. And I'm Luke Timmons, a longtime Vin Diesel fan, and with me is my co-host Cian Roche, who is sort of a distant fan of Vin. He hasn't had as much experience with Vin as I have.
I'm new to the scene.
And yes, of course. And so together I thought maybe we could go through Vin Diesel's films one by one and get Cian's perspective on it, throughout his career, mainly from his the sort of focal point of Fast and the Furious onwards.
Yeah, it's really a tour. It's a tour de Fast. It's all about getting a feel for Vin, what Vin's been up to, seeing the development of his career. I've just got a very funny message from Zoom that there's a 40 limit. There's a 40-minute time limit on this meeting, so we really got to get through it.
I just got a message saying that we have unlimited minutes.
All right, well, I can't wait to see if it just ends.
Yeah, it said that it got upgraded from its original settings to unlimited minutes, so clearly it knows that this is an important aspect of our lives.
Now, Luke, everybody knows that the start of a podcast can be some of the most awkward and difficult to parse episodes. We're not used to the format yet, and so I thought we could do a couple of things that would ease us into being the podcasters that we were always meant to be. And so the first thing, Luke, is perhaps we could use nicknames for the podcast, and I have some nicknames here. I'm wondering if you'd I want to get your thoughts on them. So I was thinking that maybe we could say, "Hi, this is me talk. No, this is you talking." You would say, "Hi, I'm lukewarm," and then I would say, "And I'm milky spice," or icy spice, or something, or like the spice, something. I
The
don't know.
spice.
I'm the spice. Yeah, you're Luke, or maybe you could do something else than lukewarm. But I just thought that was.
I feel like lukewarm isn't as inviting as the spice.
No, I mean there's a warm, but the thing is though, there is a warmth to both of them if you think about it. So are you not? I'm getting the feeling that you're not really down with the nicknames thing.
I feel like maybe if we brainstorm the nicknames a bit more, then lukewarm.
If I don't just launch it on you at the beginning.
I mean,
yeah,
I'm more than happy to use nicknames, but as a sort of starting off point, I think the audience should get to know us as people.
How about this? You're Mark and I'm Sinclair.
Oh, you know Vin Diesel's birth name.
I've been on the wiki.
You've been on his wiki.
Yeah. So, and I saw a thing earlier that said he had a different name. I can't remember what it was. I'm just gonna have a quick look. No, that doesn't say his actual name. No, that video will come up later. Cut this out. The point is, look, I do know his real name, and I think it might be nice if you were Mark and I was Sinclair. And I'm not just saying that because I get the cooler name out of the two, but though that is non-negotiable. But
Mark's a pretty cool name, so I mean,
when I was in primary school, there was a kid named Mark Whelan in my class, and he was very popular and handsome. And one day he came to school, and this isn't about Vin, and I'm sorry about that. It's a betrayal of the audience, and it's a betrayal of you. It's a public shaming of me. But one time he came.
I think that these personal stories will let the audience get to know us more, Cian, and seeing as a core part of the Fast and the Furious is family, as we'll all come to learn.
It's about love.
Mm. And I think, as part of a family, you need to know these things about another person, including their handsome primary school classmates.
I say this then as I would to a family member. Once Mark came to class and he had a Nike sort of sport jumper thing on, and it was made of that like kind of slick material that tracksuits are made of, and there were holes in the sleeves where you put your thumbs through. And I became completely infatuated with the thumb holes and the material. Look at the material. And so I went to my mother and I said, "Mother, you do not understand. I must have this." I didn't tell her Mark had it, but I think she knew. And I spent a good 2 years campaigning her, like lobbying essentially, to get me a jumper with holes in the thumbs. And eventually it didn't work. I gave up. I cut holes in the thumbs of like a body warmer, and then I wore that, and I looked like a real dinkus. But I felt cool for about a week, so that was good.
Yeah, that is a story that tells us a lot about you as a person.
Care about fashion, number one.
Yeah, and this is a very fashion forward franchise we'll be looking at,
and we'll get into that. We will get into that. It plays a heavy role in distinguishing the different groups and their proclivities. Okay, Luke. Okay, so Luke. Now, the nickname thing didn't go very well. It seems like that hasn't really broken the ice. So I did come up with a couple of more options. So I googled virtual team building exercises.
Lay them on me.
Yeah, and so I've visited Snack Nation's list of 57 virtual team building exercises for remote teams in 2021. That's Snack Nation, if anybody's looking. And so the first one that I saw from Snack Nation, because I just scrolled down to a random point in the page. Let me see if this one tickles your fancy, Luke. The live homebrew experience. So this is a paid activity which takes about 2 hours to complete, and it's best for teams of 10 to 100.
Sounds perfect for a podcast. Everyone wants to
Well,
hear
don't
team
count it
building.
out yet. Don't count it out yet, Luke.
Okay.
Wait until you hear the description.
Please give me the details of this team building activity.
Let your employees become brewers for the day in the comfort of their own home. In quotations, Zoom through 2 hours of team building with the most hands-on activity you can have behind a computer. And that's brewing.
And by brewing, they literally mean they want you to brew beer.
City Brew Tour's live homebrew experience requires no prior knowledge and comes with the equipment and ingredients to brew a full case of beer shipped right to your door prior to the event. Tip: they can even work with you to create a custom label and a team beer recipe. Some of our team's favorites were Hop Nation, Snacky Light, and Beer Buddy. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, as much as I enjoy my own beers, I'm a bit of a Corona man myself.
I've always been that's the thing, is I've always been a Corona man, and so that's something that I've said actually is I can have any drink I want as long as it's a Corona. I've always thought that to myself when I'm purchasing alcohol. Okay, so it sounds like you're not into the home brewing experience. I don't know. I thought maybe we could add some interesting ingredients.
I think something that might help with team building is if we talk about how much we know about Vin going into this, or what he means to us so far.
Oh, you're jumping so far ahead, Luke. Oh, I mean, you'll have to stop me from talking about how much I love Vin. But
I feel like you're coming into this from a very different perspective than I am. Especially when it comes to Fast and the Furious, where you've told me before that you haven't seen many of them. I think you said you've only seen Tokyo Drift.
I saw Tokyo Drift, and I saw the second one, I think.
Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yeah, and it's been a while since I saw a lot of the other Vin movies. I will admit that, and that's on me. So what? Okay, you know, you're right, Luke. I was originally going to take you to the next item on that list. Was a good team building exercise is that we ask each other lateral thinking puzzles. So, you know, I'll give you one. I'll give you one, Luke. There are 10 birds perched on a fence. A farmer aims his rifle and shoots one. How many birds are left?
So he takes his rifle and shoots one bird.
Shoots one of the birds, yeah.
Well, you haven't told me that he shot one of the birds on the fence.
He shoots one of the birds on the fence, yeah.
So, naturally, my mind goes to the fact that there should be 9 birds left.
You're thinking about 9 birds, yeah. Now, think for a moment, Luke. It's a lateral thinking question.
Lateral thinking.
And I'm realizing now that this is a bit like Play Along at Home from a Boom Bam, a notoriously successful segment. So if you're at home, don't play along, because I think that's breach of copyright. So don't think about the answer. The person fell out the first story window.
Compelling stuff. Oh.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear that.
I hate that. Just kidding. Someone's in trouble.
Wow, couldn't they be in trouble at another time when we're not trying to record something?
Very inconsiderate of them. Now, Luke, I tried to prepare for this. Vin is very important to me. He's becoming a big part of my life, and so I tried to find out everything I could about Vin. So I did some Googling, and I found a website called mycast.io. And I went to that, and I saw that Vin had a page on it, and then I scrolled down to where it has like related things or lists or whatever, and I saw one called the following: I will add all the actors and actress in the world. And this was posted by a user named I will add all the actors and actress in the world. The subtitle of this list that they made is I will add all the actors and actress in the world. And the description of it is I will add all the actors and actress in the world. You can help me add too. Now, what do you think that is?
What do I think that is?
Yeah, on mycast.io, I found a list called I will add all the actors and actress in the world.
Presumably it's a list of all the actors and actresses in the world.
And surprisingly, Luke, that's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And this person has added thousands and thousands of actors and actresses. And for some reason, you're able to vote on them. I don't know what the vote means. I tried looking around to see what the vote means. It seems like you're casting... You're like casting your own movie or something. And it's every... Oh, someone's in trouble. We'll leave him off. Inconsiderate. So yes, it is a list of all of the actors and actresses in the world. And would you know, Luke, if you go into the actors portion, Vin Diesel shows up in the first, 20, maybe? Would you consider Vin Diesel one of the top 20 most known actors in the world?
I think by this point, he's an actor who would spring to mind if you were, trying to, on the spot, if somebody was saying, think of an actor. Vin Diesel might be somebody who,
Vin Diesel, yeah. I just thought of Vin Diesel when you said it, yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I lied. He's actually number 48 on the list. I've done a quick count. Which is honestly seems a little bit disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm checking it out. Vin has 10 vote yeses and 1 vote no. Now, I'm not sure what that means, but I'm not really happy with the no. For example, Adam Sandler has 11 yeses, 0 no's. Matthew McConaughey, 12 yeses, 0 no's. So what's going on here?
I'm not sure. I've never heard of this before. But it could just be that somebody doesn't like Vin.
I mean, clearly one of these, and I don't want to use harsh language because it's a family-friendly podcast, one of these mother ducks has really... They have it out for him, and they're putting him on this weird voting website, and I'm not happy about it. And so that was the first thing I ran into when I tried looking for information about him. Granted, I did scroll a bit, but still, I wasn't happy with it. And so yeah, I was looking around for things that would connect me more to Vin, and that was the first thing I found. I was a little bit upset by it, so I went back to my roots, Luke, because you and I, as you know very well, we watched The Fast and the Furious quite recently.
We did. We in fact watched it this time last week.
Precisely the same time slot. And then you, if I'm correct, Luke, you watched it again.
I did watch most of it again.
Now that's dedication to the craft, Luke.
It is. It is one of those movies where you can just sort of watch it again quite soon after seeing it. Honestly, for the first time in quite a long time.
This is an extremely important movie.
It is.
In many ways, it gave Vin his start. Not exactly, but it really put him in the public eye.
It did. It is, if I was to describe it, I would describe it as sort of the big bang for the universe that Vin creates from here.
The Dieselverse.
Yes. And I think this is where we really got to see his acting ability.
Because what was he in before this? Riddick?
He was in Pitch Black, the first Riddick movie.
Pitch Black, yeah.
Which I suppose you could consider his, first proper role, but
yeah, it's a strong
in terms of his first leading character role. But yeah. I don't think that was as popular as The Fast and the Furious became, or even as a first movie. How popular it was.
Okay, so this is where we really get to the meat and potatoes. This is the point of the pod. We want to talk about the movies that led to the development of the Vin Diesel canon.
Yes, we do.
Now, Luke, could you give me just like a few sentences of a summary of the movie? What does it mean to you?
Of this movie?
Yeah, of the Fast and the Furious, the first movie in the series.
Would you like a summary of the movie, or just what it makes me feel?
Let's ease people in with the movie.
Okay.
It can be too strong to get all those emotions right at the start.
It can be too strong, and because of that, I'm not sure where to begin with this sort of description of the movie. There's a lot going on, even just as a background subplot, and beyond the main plot itself, that's quite important to the movie. So, we start off with this is a real inside look into racing culture, specifically street racing culture, and we get the inside look at the street racing gang led by Dominic Toretto, played by Vin Diesel, and we're introduced to the gang through the eyes of Brian, played by Paul Walker, he's an amateur street racer, but he's looking to make his mark in the world. Or so we're led to believe. And throughout the movie, we get to know Vin or Dom and his gang a bit more, and we get understand that beyond the street racing gang, they're more than that. They're a family, and we get to see how.
Look, I don't want to be too self-important here, but I think that this is the serial of podcasts about Vin Diesel. I was just thinking this. I'm just thinking about the tone. Because I had a quick Google. Look, there's no other podcast about Vin Diesel. Shockingly. I didn't think that's the situation, the state that the world was in, but I find
that hard to believe, but you know what they say.
What's more likely? That I fucked up, or that there's no podcast about Vin Diesel? Probably the former. So there's probably one out there, but it's not easy to find, and that's a shame. And so I like this. In many ways, this is like a biography.
It is
told through the guise of film.
It is the biography of Vin Diesel, told through the media of film, or the medium of film. I apologize.
No, media works. I didn't even clock that as incorrect.
And I suppose throughout his films, we'll sort of get to see how the personas he tends to play develop over time. From I wouldn't say that Dom in the first movies is the Vin that we know now. And as we weave our way through this long and winding path that is his career, we'll get to see just how much Vin transforms over his long and storied career.
And I just can't wait. Luke, I'd like to read you the #1 user review of the Fast and the Furious movie on IMDb. I went to IMDb to look for some fun facts and trivia. What I found was some honestly fairly mundane trivia and goofs. But the very first user review that I saw really stood out to me. It was written in June 25th, 2001. And the title of the review is There's Something About Vin.
There is something about Vin. I have to agree with this review.
It doesn't get better than that, Luke. It doesn't get better than that. It's perfect. So there's something about Vin. And this is from, can we see the user here? This is from Baumer. All right. So Baumer says, and it's, by the way, it's an 8 out of 10 star review. Every summer, a film comes around that takes everyone by surprise. Last year, it was Scary Movie. And I'm sure in 1977, it was a film like Star Wars. And then in 1981, it was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, I'm not saying that The Fast and the Furious is in the same class as Raiders and Star Wars. And honestly, that's open for debate there. I'm not really happy with that line. Just that it surprised everyone on the same level. Fast and Furious is short on plot and dialogue, and even some of the acting is lame. But what it oozes is testosterone. It pumps your blood, increases your adrenaline, and attacks you with fast cars, sexy women, and that one invariable that I think it has going for it, Vin Diesel. There is just something about the guy, something that you really can't put your finger on, but he just has it. Maybe it's charisma, maybe it's charm, maybe it's just that he resembles some of the action heroes from the 80s with his chiseled triceps and his slabs of pecs. Maybe it's all those things, and maybe it's none of them. All I know is that Fast and Furious is exactly what I had hoped it would be, and nothing more. This is the summer movie that I've been waiting for. It's not that the films have been out so far, and then he talks about how the films are pretty good recently. I'm pushing 30, but isn't it cool to lose yourself in a film that reminds you what it was like to be in high school? And isn't it cool to watch street racers break 140 miles an hour while they shoot NOS through their vehicles? Well, isn't it? He seems unsure. And then if I just skip a little bit here, the start of the next paragraph is, Vin Diesel plays Dominic Toretto, a massive, bald mechanic that owns a garage. And he's not... Now, we should stop there for a moment. Vin isn't that bald in this movie.
He isn't, actually. That is something interesting I noticed about it. You can actually see his hairline in this movie.
And that's very non-standard for Vin.
Yeah, as his films go on, I feel like he tends to hide his hairline a bit more. A more clean-shaven look for the top of his head.
I don't suppose you've seen young Vin, have you, Luke?
I have seen young Vin.
In my research, I found a breakdancing instructional video from the channel Crazy Laugh Action, and it's Vin Diesel How to Breakdance original. And it's a great video. Vin shows you how to do some breakdancing moves. It's great video. I then went into the channel. Turns out this is also the channel that has the original Hide Your Kids, Hide Your Wife video. So they've really got some gold on there. And in that video, he has just the most glorious puffy little mane. It's I don't know. It's like a little afro, maybe you could describe it as.
I'm looking at
little baby afro. Now. And so this guy, our user friend here, he's saying Vin is bald in this movie. And I think that's unfair to Vin in the future movies. Because Vin in the future movies, that's bald. That's real bald. But right here, he's very closely buzzed. But not bald. And so I just wanted to point that out. It says he's a massive bald mechanic that owns a garage but street races on the side to make some extra cash. That's also true, but not encapsulating the whole story. He's missing some stuff there. I feel like this guy didn't really watch the movie, but that's okay. And then there's some spoilers, which I won't go through. And then he talks about Vin some more, about how he was in Saving Private Ryan, playing Caparzo, and then he was in Pitch Black. And the final... I want to tell you just the final lines of this review, and this really stuck out to me. I think Vin is going to do great things in the years to come. He is not a nobody anymore. This film will take care of that. And face it, isn't it cool to see the genesis of a new action hero? Wow.
Cian, can you tell me the date on this review?
And the thing is that he fucking nailed it, because this is June 25th, 2001.
And here we are, a month off of the anniversary, the 20th anniversary of The Fast and the Furious.
Absolutely nailed it. This guy, he has his finger on the pulse.
He does.
And they couldn't have been more correct. I mean, Vin is a household name.
He is, of course, a household name now.
Especially
I think,
in our households.
Of course. But I think you'd have a bit of trouble finding, I think, somebody where I live who doesn't know who Vin Diesel is. Exactly.
I mean, there's a reason he's number 48 on that guy's lists of all the actors and actresses in the world. So I was so happy to find that, Luke, and I wanted to share it with you.
So you mentioned a bit about how there were spoilers in this review, and I think now might be a good time to dig into the plot.
Yeah.
And seeing as you are the newcomer to this sort of exploration of Vin, I think maybe you could go through the plot.
You want to hear my... Okay, well, my interpretation of it is not nearly as detailed as yours, Luke. I mean, you're an expert on this stuff. But, yeah, I'll give you... maybe there are some friends out there who haven't watched the movies, and this will serve as a nice intro. So, as you mentioned, open. What do we see? We witness a heist. It is a moving heist in that the thing being heisted is a truck. And what does the truck contain? Many Panasonic video players or something. I'm not sure if
DVD
Panasonic...
players. This was
DVD players.
This was 2001, Cian. DVD players were at a premium.
Would you believe I had no idea?
Well,
and
we were
it's a heist.
We were quite young at the time. This was not
I
something
was
we would have
4
been
years old,
exactly.
and I'm sure I went to the cinema to see it, and I loved every second. And so yeah, we opened to a heist on a truck carrying Panasonic video players. I don't know if there was a sponsorship deal. One piece of trivia that I did find is that these Panasonic video players in the truck, they are arranged in such a way to make it obvious to the viewer what's in the truck. But as soon as that truck takes a single turn, they're going everywhere. They're falling all over the place. They're not protected. It's a terrible way to transport them.
They are not strapped down at all, and there is a pathway leading up through the DVD players, just in the middle of the truck. And you know, any truck driver worth their salt knows that as soon as they hit a sharp turn, or even just a meandering turn, those boxes are going to tip, and you're going to have a mess on your hands.
And with the price you're paying for those in 2001, are you kidding me?
Exactly.
That's a job. So yeah, that's, you know, we'll give them a pass on that one. But we open to this heist, and what do we see? We see some people in black outfits with face covering helmets, rolling up on a truck in transit. They do a big shoot out the sunroof, I believe, and it shoots like a grappling hook into the windscreen of the truck. They pull it out, they shoot another one in, and they climb in there, I believe derailing stopping the truck, and then they take all of their spoils and they dip.
No, Cian, you've glossed over a very important point. How did they just stop the truck? Did the trucker just let them take over?
So the man goes into the truck, right? By shooting the like weird grappling hook thing into the seat, and then does he just kind of wrestle the man?
I believe when we were watching it, you did think that they wrestled for just a few moments before. You thought that the driver just fell
asleep.
Yeah.
It looked to me like he jumped into the cockpit of the truck and wrestled for a moment, and then the man just fell asleep and let him go through.
And to the untrained eye, it might just seem like that, but in fact, these the people performing the heist, these robbers, these adrenaline junkies, they have some top of the range equipment. They have their grappling hooks. They have their identical Honda Civics with green neon lights underneath the chassis.
Good to have lights for a heist.
And of course, they have tranquilizer guns with them. And so...
Tranks, that was it. So they jump into the truck, trank the man. He falls asleep. They stop the truck, take all the Panasonics, and then they dip with them. And then, Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the next scene is we see Paul Walker. We see his character rolling up to a garage.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to correct you, Cian.
Oh, this is going to be a common theme.
So as the truck filled with stolen Panasonic DVD players and TVs drives off into the night, we pan up to see the sky, and we see a time lapse of the sun rising. From there, the camera once again pans down, and we're met with a green Toyota Celica outside of Dodgers Stadium in Los Angeles. And here is where we meet our protagonist, Brian Spillner, as he's known.
Hold on. His second name is Spillner?
As far as we know, it's Brian Spillner.
How did I not know that? That's such a name that somebody made up. Oh, I'm going to offend someone. No one named Spillner is going to listen to this. I'm starting a beef. Fuck anyone whose second name is Spillner. That's an early beef for the pod.
Yeah, feuding with all Spillners is...
All Spillners. There's not going to be enough of them for it to matter. That's my feeling.
Wait until all our reviews say that everyone hates us because we hate Spillners.
Everyone's uncle is a Spillner or something like that. Whoops.
Anyway, so we get our first look at our protagonist, Brian Spillner. And he's sort of just sitting in his car. He's revving the engine. He has an intense look on his face, and you're kind of wondering, what's he up to? What's his game here?
Even I'm wondering that currently.
And then he darts off. He's pushing his car to the absolute limit, and we get the sense that he's trying to prove something, maybe to himself. And just as he reaches 140 miles per hour, I have to say, he absolutely bins it and spins his car. Quite impressive, considering he was traveling in a straight line and not turning.
It's remarkable to me that I don't have any memory of this whatsoever.
And so he spins it, and on my secondary watch, I did notice that he gets dangerously close to a barrier that would allow his car to topple over and down a very steep hill. So maybe it's a good thing he stopped just in time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of... Oh, my alarm's going off. Get that out of here.
And I'm afraid he says a bad word once he spins.
Does he? What word does he say?
He says, shit. He actually shouts it and hits his steering wheel in anger.
I'm so sorry.
And here's the sense that we get. We get the sense here that Brian, he's not an expert at this. He's amateur hour, clearly. He's got a lot of heart, but he still has to develop those skills if he's going to get anywhere. But we don't yet know where he's trying to go. We just know he wants to drive his car really fast.
Wow. That really gives you a lot more setup for Brian, doesn't it?
It does. It is an important character point because, it informs his development throughout the movies, of which, there is practically endless amounts of development.
Yeah, he really goes from A to B in this one. All right, so is it then the scene in the garage?
He doesn't. He actually, Cian, you might remember, he does go to the grocery store that Dom owns.
Oh, I thought that's what that was.
That's not
also like a combo grocery store and garage.
Yes. And you'll notice that he's changed cars in this time. He's opted for a nice red Ford truck. And Cian, what
I have no memory of this whatsoever.
And Cian, what does he want from the shop?
Oh, I do remember this. He wants a dirty, nasty tuna sandwich with no crusts.
Yeah, so first of all, we know that
he walks up to the woman, yeah, and he's like, I think she says the usual or something. Or she
No, he asks, how's the tuna today? And
she says like bad as usual.
No, she's kind of confused as to why he always asks, how's the tuna, even though he gets it every day, so he knows it'll be the same every day.
Look, I'm feeling so embarrassed right now that I don't know the specific quotes for all of the things that happen in the movie, and I'm just glad. I just want to say that I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I have you to really send me in the right direction.
So this is Mia, as we'll come to know later, and here is where we get our first glimpse of Dom. While Mia's making the sandwich to give to Brian for his lunch, I suppose, we get to see
his filthy tuna machinations. Yeah,
we get to see Dom in the back office of this grocery store, and we get the first look at Vin's face throughout the entire franchise, really, when he goes to get a beer to cool himself off, because it's a very hot day, as we later see from the massive amounts of sweat he has all over his shirt.
I remember thinking, those are some large traps at the time.
And you weren't wrong. Vin looks great in this movie.
He looks great. He was in tip-top condition.
So I guess we have to go back to the sandwich. It was truly abysmal looking.
It was a shitty sandwich, and that's why Mia was so confused. She was like, you want the bad sandwich. Why do you want the bad sandwich? But I feel, Luke, he didn't want the bad sandwich. He just wanted to talk to Mia. He wanted an excuse.
So this was his way of flirting, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and then he asks for the nasty fish sandwich, and he says cut off the crusts so that I guess he has less of the sandwich to eat.
Maybe he's just a picky eater. That's what I picked up from it.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay attention in the remainder of the movies to see if he's a picky eater or if he just doesn't like the bad tuna sandwich. Let's get a sandwich counter going. I'm going to set that to 1.
It's 1 so far, but presumably there's been many in the past. This is a regular thing for him.
Yeah. But I mean, we haven't seen it, so we can't be sure.
In fact, it's the same every day, as Mia points out when he first comes in.
I'll put sandwich 1, crusts 0.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so we'll see how that develops over the course of the pod.
And this is the first look we get at Dom's crew as well, because they're pulling up to the shop. They've all got their cars, and, you know, to a certain degree it says a bit about their personality. They've all got their different styles and their different types of cars they like. You know, we have Leon and Letty and Jesse and Vince, who all pull up to the shop and are obviously there to see Dom and Mia, because together they're the crew, the main gang you're going to be having a journey with throughout this movie.
Do you mind if I refer to them as the Rowdy Boys?
Well, I feel like that's not very inclusive of Michelle Rodriguez.
Of Michelle Rodriguez. Now, I knew you would say that, Luke, but I'm using boys in the gender inclusive sense.
Mm-hmm.
B-O-U-Y-S.
B-O-U-Y-S.
B-U-O-Y-S. B-U-O-Y-S. It's a completely gender non-restrictive term.
And once they pull up, Vince says there's a problem with their car, and they all crowd around the hood of his car as they look at his engine. And here we get the sense that Jesse is the real sort of the brains of the group, where he's the guy who knows exactly what's wrong, and he knows how to fix it.
Jesse says car words.
He does.
Quite a number of times, yeah.
And Cian, could you maybe walk us through what happens next?
So, as I understand it, Vince, who's played by Matt Schulze, that's right, I do still have the IMDb open, he gets upset because you get the impression that he's kind of been eyeing up Mia for a while, and she has no interest. And we don't like this behavior, Luke. No means no. We know no means no, and we're gonna get to that later as well. But yeah, Vince kind of has the hots for her, and he doesn't like that very handsome man, Paul Walker, is speaking to her. And so Vince comes in, and he's being rowdy. It's in the name. And, well, an altercation starts, and they start to fight, and they're getting upset, and it's very physical, very masculine. This, I think, brings us to the adrenaline mentioned earlier by that review. And everybody, instead of intervening, everybody just says, Vin. Well, they don't say Vin, they say Dom. Come on, sort this out.
And to a certain degree, Dom is unwilling to help. He's kind of waiting to see how it all plays out, but it's at the behest of Mia that he eventually sort of goes to stop this fight.
And that's where we see the first glimpse of an extremely important theme in the series, Luke.
And what is that theme? Family.
Why does he listen to Mia and nobody else? Because her name is Mia Toretto.
Mia is his sister.
Mia is her sister.
So,
baby sister, he's taking care of his family.
Yeah.
He's not upset that Brian's hitting on her. That's fine. He feels no ownership over his sister, although maybe he does, and it's weird, and we see that later. But at this point, he's just trying to be a good brother because she says, go help him, and he does it. Except he doesn't. He helps, but in a weird way.
He does, yes. Brian seemingly gets the upper hand in the fight. He has Vince on the floor, and just as he's about to punch him one final time, Vin grabs Brian and throws him against one of the gang's cars. And, you know, Brian tries to play it off as sort of, you know, this was all Vince's fault. He's the one who started this.
And in many ways it was, Luke.
It was. Cian, I'm very sorry to report that when Vince is trying to aggravate or provoke Brian, he does, in fact, use a homophobic slur.
I have this in my notes, Luke. It says F-bomb is present.
Mm-hmm. And I
wasn't happy about it.
I missed it, in fact, on our first watch. I only noticed in the second one, and I was bitterly disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in Vince. I'm disappointed in Vin. And I'm disappointed with the Fast and Furious crew. Now, I understand that it's a different time, and it's a word that is used, and I understand that. But it's just if we're to grow to love these characters, I feel like let's keep that kind of negativity out.
Yes. So Vin steps in, and he sort of acts like, whatever fight was happening, it's over now. And Brian's pretty accepting about it. But of course,
except that it causes problems.
But of course, Vince tries to restart the fight by charging at Brian. But of course, Dom stops him, and he says, "You embarrass me." And it's here that we get the idea that he is in fact the leader of this group.
Here's where pride.
He does. He doesn't like his crew embarrassing him. He expects them to act like responsible adults.
But at the same time, to regularly break the law in street races.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
So we also learned that Brian works for a man called Harry, who supplies parts to Dom and his crew, and presumably other street racers. And we get the sense that Dom has some sort of sway over who Harry is hiring, or his opinion is respected, because he sort of implies that because of his word, Brian will be fired for causing this fight, or for just being in it. And that's when we cut away back to Harry's shop, the Racer's Edge.
I had no idea that was the name.
It was the name.
The Racer's Edge, jeez.
And we meet Harry. He looks like a very stressed out man. He's on the phone to Dom, and he's trying his best to sort of, make peace with Dom and try and keep Brian in his job. And we also learned that Brian actually lives at this shop in a room behind the main office.
Dedicated to his craft.
He does. He has a lot of stickers up on his wall, some of which about Nos.
You know what? That's the thing I noticed. It will become a major theme in the films.
In fact,
Nos
it becomes a major theme in the next 10 seconds.
It does. It does. That's true. Yeah.
I have an exact quote from Brian here. It's
let's hear it.
I need Nos. I need Nos. He says it twice for effect.
And the thing is that it really is extremely important to everybody in the whole movie, the Nos.
No matter how inconvenient it makes your life, if you're a street racer, you need Nos.
And the Nos is essentially magic, chronomancy, time-bending material that you put in your car to make it go fast relative to the other people.
So Brian...
Luke, all of the races are determined by Nos.
They are.
Almost all. Maybe there are some which aren't.
So Brian strolls back out into the shop, and he's looking at all the Nos canisters, and he's trying to pick which one's the best for him. And he picks the biggest one, as if that's enough. In the last case. Yes. And then he decides, no, that's not enough. He needs 2 of them.
Yeah, two of those,
2 of the biggest possible Nos canisters to be installed in his car by nightfall.
And what does he need them for? What comes at nightfall? A big old street race.
He is going to a street race, as is obviously the custom in Los Angeles. As soon as day turns to night, this street is taken over by an army of street racers.
Swarming.
Yeah, swarming. We go to some sort of abandoned warehouse district where hundreds of street racers must be, and they've all parked their cars and they're showing off. They want everyone to see who has the best car and who's the best racer. And Brian shows up in his Toyota, his nice green Toyota that he's obviously spent quite a lot of time trying to perfect. And of course, he's new to the scene, so once he gets out of the car, he doesn't know who to talk to. He sort of stands there awkwardly. He's a lonely person, I have here in my notes. And here's where we get our first glimpse of Hector.
And the only thing that I remember about Hector is that he's trying to go straight.
He's trying to be legit.
He's trying to go legit. Yeah.
He calls Brian a snowman.
A snowman. And Luke, would you believe that I have that in my notes too, independently of yours? Snowman dash racial slur.
Is it? Yeah, is it a racial thing?
Oh, it has to be. Although Paul Walker is quite a tan man.
He is,
but he does call him snowman, and I have to assume that this is a racial thing, and that's not uncommon in this movie, because there are some pretty clear racial divides in the movie.
Yeah,
people are divvied up by race.
They are,
and I'm not talking about the one with cars.
So Hector goes.
Sorry, Luke. That was a very good joke.
It was. I
Thanks.
I did notice it, but I was caught up with something in my notes.
You're so professional.
Cian, it's my fault. And here's where we get our first glimpse of one of the racers from later in the movie, Edwin.
Played by Ja Rule, if I remember correctly, Luke.
He is indeed played by Ja Rule. And like Hector, he wants to see what's under the hood of Brian's car.
Now, Luke, I would like to bring something up. And that is that I might sound a little off today. Might sound a little strange. And that is for a very good reason, and that is I received the vax today. I've been vaccinated against big virus COVID-19. And I got the one that makes you the most sick. AstraZeneca, now rebranded to something else. And I that was about, 8 hours ago. I'm starting to feel pretty horrible.
Oh. Well,
No. This is fine. I'm committed to my craft, but I'm just letting you know. If I'm sounding strange, it's because I am physically in a lot of pain.
And you're still committed to...
And not only this, Luke. I also received an email today from the US consulate in Munich telling me that my request for an emergency visa appointment was approved and that the first available visa appointment was tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And so I have booked an extremely expensive train journey, which I will depart on at 4 a.m., which is in 4 hours or 5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's going to be a real wild ride for me tonight.
I'm surprised you're not trying to get some sleep before this.
And you know, Luke, that's what a lot of people said. A lot of people said you should sleep. It's important that you rest before going on this long journey while extremely sick from the big vax that you took, which gets worse on the second day, as I understand it. And to them, I say, you're a hater, and you don't understand me. And you don't have my best interests at heart, because if you did, you would tell me to record more podcasts about Vin Diesel and basically read out a summary of the movie. That's what they'd say. Now, Luke, it's a very important thing which happens in the first race of the movie. And I will note, we've been here for a while, and we are on race 1 of the movie.
Yeah, we're 10 minutes in. So
we're 10 minutes in.
So
but can I just interject here and say this is where one of my biggest issues with the movie really rears its head, Luke. And that is, say it with me, women are objects. Women are objects
within this movie.
Within the context of the movie, except for Michelle Rodriguez, women are objects that are literally to be won and lost by men in cars. Now, we were very disappointed upon our watching.
We were. Several times I noted this. And you know what? It was kind of a bitter disappointment with the movie.
It's you know what? It's a sobering reminder of the problems that we are yet to fix. Because I'm happy that I'm surprised by it, because it means that it's not quite as common nowadays. But I also can recognize that these ideas are not gone, Luke. They're present in the Fast and the Furious. I don't want to say Vin has any connection to these ideas. However, I am aware of some fairly unfortunate video content relating to Vin's treatment of some women.
Mm-hmm.
We won't get into that's for a future episode.
That is. You know,
we're not giving him a pass. Just so everybody knows, we're not giving him a pass. Vin is subject to scrutiny.
We will explore his flaws in a later episode. You know, we know he's not perfect.
As long as he gets better, as long as he improves, apologizes for what he's done, makes it right, and then he makes the world a better place, then we can go on with the Vin history.
I've mentioned that we meet Edwin, played by Ja Rule, and here's he hits us with a bit of wisdom. Us and Brian, our sort of surrogate, our audience surrogate. It's not how you stand by your car; it's how you race your car.
Wow, that's so true, and it's true in real life too, Luke. It's not just the race. What I'm hearing from that is, it's not just about appearances. It's about your actions and your impact on the world. That's what matters. And I've always said that.
And, you know, we kind of get the sense in the scene that we're waiting for somebody to show up. And who do you think that is, Cian?
I know for a fact that Dominic Toretto shows up with his crew, the Rowdy Boys. Well, some of the Rowdy Boys. The Rowdy Girl in particular. And what we see is that Dom, while a respectable individual...
Mm-hmm.
He is a bit of a flirt.
He is.
Vin Diesel plays Dominic Toretto, who's a bit of a flirt, even though he has very clearly a partner in Michelle Rodriguez.
He does.
And interestingly, and I would like to bring up a societal issue here, Luke. This is secondary to the women are objects, and that is when Michelle Rodriguez, whose character's name is Letty, sees Dom flirting with these women, getting right out of the car. She doesn't really get angry with Dom, per se. She just gets angry at the women.
She does.
And in my opinion, Luke, she had no contract with the women that they were breaching. There was no understanding between her and the women that was being broken. And on the contrary, her and Dom did have such a contract. And so it makes no sense for her to get mad at the other people involved. And this is a common thing I see in society, Luke, and I'm baffled. I'm bemused by it.
I was troubled by that. Dom does kind of play it off as a sort of nothing thing, but he should be more respectful of his relationship with Letty. It's, you know...
Clearly, they're exclusive.
Obviously.
And Luke, there is absolutely nothing wrong with polyamorous or polygamous relationships. Go for it. But that is clearly not their agreement, and it's that breach of trust that gave me pause. I want to say it gave me pause.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was coming into it thinking, I'm going to love Vin, I'm going to respect Vin all the time. I love Vin, that's what I thought. And then I was thrown by this.
It was a troubling scene, but I think it moves past this quite quickly, and we're shown the reason why we're here. It's not just a case of showing off your cars and trying to, trying to show yourself off to the street racing world of Los Angeles. There's a race happening that night. And who else is in it but Dominic Toretto himself, the big dog of the street racing world.
Now, when we saw this, Luke, I remember being impressed. I think the person who starts the race with the, flags or whatever the hell, I think it was a dude.
It was.
Yeah, and they didn't do that classic thing where it's like, look, it's midriff woman here to start the race. It was just some lad, and I liked that. Not because I think it should always just be dudes or whatever, but I just liked that they didn't go along with that particular stereotype. And so in the race, as I recall it, Luke, we have Dom. We get Brian, who comes in real hot, offering a pink slip for his car. So his wager to get into this race, because he's a nobody essentially, is if I win, I think he says that they have to hire him or...
No, he gets the money and he gets the respect. It's clear he wants the respect.
I did forget that he was demanding the respect, and they all laughed at him. But I think we all understood what he meant. And yeah, he offers the pink slip, which means he loses his very nice car. And they were like, "What's up with your car?" They look in the engine; it's very fancy. It's worth a lot of money. So they say, "Okay."
Dom tells him that
also
that
in the
in.
race. Yeah, he's in. Also in the race, I believe
We have Edwin.
Edwin's in there. That's Ja Rule. And then...
We have Danny Yamato. I believe
yes.
I don't think we learn his name at any point, but that is apparently his credited name. And
okay. So he's...
They all leave the sort of warehouse district they've all been parking their cars in. I don't know if you noticed this when Dom and his gang came in. They came in, along the sort of pathway they had carved out to get in and out of the warehouse districts. But they didn't park the cars anywhere, and it didn't seem like there was any space left to park their cars. So that means that when they left, they did have to reverse the entire way out. Very awkwardly, with lots of people just milling around.
I love that visual. I love the visual. But at the same time, Luke, I will say I believe them to be so proficient at the driving that they would have made it look cool.
Of course. But anyway, you can tell the street race is underway. They've all driven off to find the perfect length of road to drive along. Someplace where the cops aren't going to find them easily, and where they have that perfectly straight quarter mile that, is so important to this level of street racing.
So you mentioned they're hard to find by the police. They do the race, and spoilers, the police do come, so they haven't chosen well.
They do have somebody with a police scanner though, and it is Leon, one of Dom's crew. And he's the guy who's keeping an eye out, and he's ready to tell them that they need to scatter if the cops get wind of their little racing operation.
So let's talk about the race. Let's talk about the race. So it's all about the NOS.
It is, yes. Although it does seem that Dom and Brian are the only people with NOS in the race.
And thus the people we focus on for most of the race, except at the beginning when Ja Rule is like kind of winning, and I believe before the race he's promised sex from a woman if he wins the race. Or two women at the same time.
So let's discuss the start of the race. Two people run across the road and sort of make a makeshift starting line with spray paint, and Dom, Edwin, and Danny all pull up to the line perfectly, and Brian overshoots his mark, sort of singling him out as the amateur racer here.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, he has to reverse back into place, and all of the other drivers kind of give him a look as like, wow, that was pretty embarrassing. You sure you know what you're doing here? And so we kind of get a view of their sort of pre-race rituals, or sort of the pre-race interactions they have with others. Dom is, he's cool and collected. This is sort of his average Friday night for him.
Dom, as I remember, he runs his fingers over the tops of some tall grass and then crushes some dirt in his hand and then rubs it between his palms.
Yes, correct? Yeah, that is exactly correct.
Very serene.
Danny is playing Gran Turismo on his PS1 in his car.
They've really typecast him. Yeah.
Which he does an abysmal job of, by the way. He completely bins it into a wall, like straight away. He turns right into a left turn, so he is not very good at the game.
Well, let's hope he's better at the real life cars. That's all I'll say.
And here's the moment you mentioned. Edwin, who's of course played by Ja Rule, very important fact. I suppose his girlfriend, or maybe sort of a girl he's been seeing, comes up to him, and she tells him that she's his no matter if he wins or loses. But if he does win, he gets another girl as a trophy.
Yeah, a literal victory trophy human being.
Yeah. So once again, women are objectified pretty hard, and it's not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And
you are to be competed for by the fast sit. Whoever can sit the fastest, they will receive woman. Yeah.
And that's troubling. But
that's troubling.
We'll see what happens with that particular plotline. And then we cut to Brian, who's sort of setting up all of his equipment. He has a nice little screen that tells him all about his NOS. And he has a laptop next to him that's telling him that when it's okay to use NOS, when the engine will be safe to use NOS with. And you can tell he's quite nervous. He's trying to sort of hype himself up and say, he's going to win. But you can tell, like, this is his first proper race.
We were all nervous, Luke. We were all nervous.
We were all Brian in that moment.
And that's good storytelling. Empathy.
We need to see Brian develop as a racer and as a person. And so the race gets underway, and obviously, as the most experienced racers, Dom and Danny and Edwin pull away first, and Brian, he has a bit of trouble. He swerves a bit, and he's a bit late off the start. And it's here that we get one of the famous sort of X-ray shots of going through the car as Dom puts it into first gear and pulls away from the starting line. We get to see all the action inside the engine.
That classic CGI Fast and the Furious goodness, yeah.
And you know what? It's pretty decent because...
It's pretty good. It's for 2001 especially, it's pretty good. I'm not a guy who knows what's in there under that sweet hood of theirs, but it seemed correct.
It is entertaining to watch. And as the race gets underway, it's clear that Dom is probably going to win. Edwin is surprisingly cocky, given that he's in third place by quite a bit. Yeah. By quite a bit, and he
I originally thought that he was winning because of how he was acting.
No,
and how he was almost celebrating. But no, he was in third place. Yeah.
He is in third place, and
of 4.
He shouts out "ménage," as in, I guess, ménage à trois, as in a threesome thing. And it's like, you're still losing the race.
Yeah, that word was featured in Katy Perry's Friday Night, where she says "ménage à trois," and that's where I learned when I was a young boy what that meant. And I wasn't happy about it then, and I'm not particularly happy about it now.
You can tell the only thing he cares about is his own sexual gratification, which is not okay.
Yeah.
But here's where we see something very important for the first time, and it's NOS.
and it is the time magic that is in a bottle, NOS.
While looking out the window of the cars and seeing the streetlights pass by, you do see a bit of like motion blur to sort of give the impression that they're going fast. But once Brian hits the button that says NOS 1 on it,
he essentially activates the hyperdrive.
Yeah, he does. All light and color blends together as he shoots past Edwin and Danny. Actually even past Dom, and puts himself in the lead. And that's at this point that Edwin shouts out, "No, Monica," which is a sort of a comeuppance because of his poor behavior earlier.
It was his hubris, Luke. It was his hubris that undid him in the end.
Yeah, he didn't even have NOS.
That's a lesson that we learned from the movie.
He didn't even have NOS. How did he expect to win?
Yeah, it was nonsense. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So Brian's pulled ahead. He's in first, but Dom, the expert racer that he is, he already knows he's done it too soon. Oh wait, no, he's still behind Dom at this point. His laptop is telling him that he can't use NOS number 2 because it would be dangerous.
Yeah,
to the engine manifold.
Does it really say engine manifold?
It says danger to manifold.
That is fucking amazing, Luke. Thank you for that.
But Brian doesn't care. He says "shut up" to his laptop. And he
throws it out the window.
He presses NOS 2.
NOS 2 Electric Boogaloo, the sequel to NOS.
He does. And he pulls ahead of Dom with reckless disregard for his manifold.
And his own safety, yeah. A bit of his car falls out, I believe. The floor
panel for the passenger seat falls out and drags along, and eventually just sort of flies backwards behind him, potentially hurting somebody.
I'd like to point out something, Luke, and that is that it is taking us longer to review this scene by quite a bit than it actually occurs in the movie.
Yeah, it's meant to be a 10-second race, and it lasts about 90 seconds, so I think it's appropriate.
And they go a quarter mile, so it becomes apparent that they were actually travelling extremely slowly.
Yes. But let's speed it up. So, so once the NOS is done, Brian's ahead, but Dom has his own NOS. So he presses the air conditioning button in his Mazda, and it pops out the hazard light. And on top of that, there's another button for his NOS. And he uses that to win the race, because it's the magic fuel that lets you win races in this universe.
Yeah, he presses it and he wins race.
Yeah. It is important to note that because the air conditioning button is completely useless in his car no longer has air conditioning, which must be terrible in California.
That's why he's so sweaty all the time. He's a wet man in this movie.
But anyway, Dom wins the race, and once again Brian sort of spins the car, and it's smoking. Obviously he's done quite a bit of damage to it, and Dom's sort of celebrating his victory, and Brian pulls up, and he's all smiles. He thinks he's sort of proven himself, but he has in fact lost his car.
And then this is where, as I mentioned earlier, the police do come when after they stop and they talk for a little while.
Yeah, we do get an important sort of speech or monologue from Dom when Brian points out that he almost had him in the race. And he comes to the final point, which is that it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning. And I think those are words to live by.
It seems oddly confrontational to me, Luke, would you believe?
But he is right, It doesn't really matter if you do win by an inch or a mile.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of rewards, yeah.
In terms of also objectification of women, I must point out that Dom does call Letty a trophy at the end of the race.
That is not correct, Luke.
He does. He lifts her up and he says, "You make a nice little trophy."
I have I've got the AstraZeneca sweats at the moment, and that's given me a hernia. Jesus, I'm really dating the ep with the vax talk. I apologize for that.
So yeah, we the cops show up and everyone drives off. Brian's car is magically fixed and he's able to drive away with no problem. And everyone scatters. Dom makes a smart play and sort of brings his car into a parking garage, because it's the US and they don't call it car parks over there. Mm-hmm. I have to actually point out here that his car has horrible understeer. Like, literally the smallest corners, the tires are squealing with the insane amount of pressure it's under just to get around, like, the gentle curves. That's because
he only races in a straight line. He goes a quarter mile at a time.
But it is also his main car, so he also has to use it for every other thing he does.
I'm sure he loves it. He loves making his big noise in the street.
He hides his car in the car park, and he sort of leaves it there, and he's going to let the heat die down, and then he's going to go home. But wouldn't you know it, the cops show up.
The police are there, and an interesting thing happens, which is the police are driving around, and one of them sees Dom just walking on the street in a jacket as a normal-looking dude, and he goes, "Dominic Toretto, stop." And that raises a very important question, which is, why do they not just arrest him at the business that he owns under his own name?
It's issues with object permanence. They only remember Dom when they can see him in front of them. It's like, as soon as he's out of sight, they immediately forget about him. But once he's in front of them, they remember everything.
You could make an argument about, like, oh, they're not arresting him until they have a certain amount of evidence or whatever. But then why would this guy just be like, "Hey, it's you, and I know it's you, and you're being arrested"? Why would he do that?
It's difficult.
Also, Brian's car, in an absolute fucking wreck from the race and the overuse of his NOS against the recommendation of his computer. When the police come, he turns it on and it just works.
Yeah,
and then he drives away.
It's magically fixed.
It's magically. The car functions for some reason, even though it's just like the entire engine billows out in smoke when they open it up.
And this is important.
But yet it's fine.
And why is this important, Cian?
Oh, because now the car, which was promised to Dom as he has won, is busted, and so Dom tells him that Brian owes him, and then he is also saved. So Brian pulls up and saves Dom from the police.
Cian, where does Dom hop into the car? Like, as in, what part of the car does he he sit in?
Oh, I would have to say the passenger seat, surely.
But Cian, what do we know about what happened in the passenger seat earlier?
There is no floor there.
So, for the entire time they're escaping from the police and just driving around, Dom is just hovering his feet over open road.
Oh. Well, I hadn't considered that one, Luke. Had not considered that at all. He's like essentially Flintstoning it the whole way home.
Yes. You know, it's one of those things, if he accidentally puts his legs down, they will be immediately ripped off by...
Just shredded, yeah.
Yeah.
By the belt sander that is the road.
Yeah. But they do get away from the cops. And, you know, they kind of have a talk. Dom wants to know how Brian was so good at driving like that. And eventually it turns out that he had his boy, Jesse, research him. And it comes up that Dom has been to prison, and so has Brian. And Dom said he'll die before he goes back, which is, you know, it's very telling of his character.
What? I have absolutely no idea what happens after that.
So this is where we meet Johnny Tran.
Oh, yes. And is Lance there?
Lance is there. Johnny, they end up in the wrong neighborhood, you could say. And Johnny Tran and his gang of bikers pull up alongside Dom, knowing he was there somehow, despite not being in his own car and never having met Brian. And they sort of bring him to a kind of an abandoned parking lot. And it's here that we realise there's a bit of a feud between Johnny Tran and Vin. And here's where we're introduced to Lance.
Dare I say, Luke, my favourite character in the movie, Lance. Now, is Lance the one wearing the snakeskin pants in this scene?
He is wearing snakeskin pants. He looks amazing in them, to be honest.
He looks very good in the pants, that is clear. He has a very malicious and menacing energy about him as well, more so than the main villain.
He does, indeed. You know, there's sort of a back and forth between Dom and Johnny, and it eventually comes up to Brian's car, where, you know, Brian says that it's now Dom's car, but he says he hasn't taken delivery for it yet.
Whatever that means.
Yeah. And Johnny asks what Lance thinks of the car. And Lance, you know, showing off his natural charisma, gives a 1,000-yard stare while holding an Uzi and says it's an amazing machine with literally no emotion.
Yeah. He is a void of a person.
And, you know, eventually they drive off and say, pretty much, don't come back into our neighborhood. And both Brian and Dom thinks that's the end of it. But what happens, Cian?
I believe they drive away and then they immediately come back and shoot the car with guns for a while.
Do you remember a specific quote from the scene? Maybe from Vin himself?
I actually don't, Luke.
He shouts at the top of his lungs, "Nos." And then the car moves off.
Oh, you know, I should have guessed, Luke. Everything in the movie revolves around the objectification of women, family, or nos.
Yeah.
Oh. And I could have guessed in that scenario, let's be honest. He wasn't going to shout family.
This leads to Dom and Brian walking away from the scene. And here we learn that the feud is over. A business deal gone bad. And Dom also points out that it's also because he slept with Johnny's sister.
Yes, that was another instance of weird familial... It's actually, that's a combo of family and the objectification of women.
But here's the thing that I'm confused about. It's kind of implied later in the movie that Dom and Letty have been together for pretty much since they were teenagers.
An upsettingly long time. But since she was a teenager.
Yeah, but I assumed that they were both teenagers because of, you know, It would be
I hope
weird
so.
otherwise.
It would be weird, but I wouldn't put it
But
past the movie.
but this would mean then that Dom cheated on Letty at some point.
It would mean that, and given his earlier behaviour, I would not be surprised by that. And dare I say, Luke, in episode 1, Dom and Vin are falling from grace in my mind, just a tad.
They are indeed. Look, he's only human. He may not be who we want to aspire to be yet.
But we can appreciate his journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there was no flaws with him, there'd be no character to develop. So,
Wow, that's poignant.
So Brian and Dom take a taxi back to Dom's house, where there is a massive party going on. Seemingly a place where any police officer could find Dom if they wanted to. If this is what it's like after every single race he wins. And I want you to set the scene as he walks in, Cian.
I am seeing there's a woman on the floor playing video games, and behind her sits Vince, and Vince is wearing, I believe, is this correct, Luke?
Leon is sitting behind Letty, who's playing, again, Gran Turismo on PS1.
And we do see Vince, though.
Vince is doing something that is generally
he's
considered very wrong.
He's playing an electric guitar, just like doing solos in the party.
He's not even doing solos. He's just playing the same 3 chords over and over again.
He's not.
He is.
Well, and worse than that, even, somehow, is that he is wearing a mesh tank top over a camouflage tank top.
He is. This is his attire for most of the movie.
And we're taking you back to fashion corner here, because we saw the snakeskin pants, and now we see the mesh tank top over the camo tank top. And that is some pretty iconic behavior.
It is, that's you see a mesh tank top over a camo tank top, even from the back, you're like, is that Vince?
That's gotta be Vince. I don't know anyone else who would have the cojones.
So how would you say that the crew reacted once he came in? Or how
they're like, oh, whoopsie, we didn't help you when the police were getting you. And then Vin is mad, Dom is mad, and he's like, screw you, and also give me that beer, Vince. And then he gives the beer to Brian, and I think he first says,
you can have any brew you like as long as it's a Corona.
As long as it's a Corona. Why does he say this, Luke? Why is this a thing in the movie?
It's because Vin Diesel loves Corona.
Actual human being Vin Diesel likes Corona a lot, and so in the movie, Corona became the only acceptable beverage. Also, Snapple? Isn't Snapple there at some point?
It is, but how did Mia react when she saw Brian coming to the party?
Oh yeah, she sees him and she's like, "Uh-oh, I'm not hot." Incredibly attractive actress, Jordana Brewster. She says, "I'm not hot enough. Allow me to doll up for a moment," and she does, and that's fine. It's her decision. And she goes down to greet Brian, and it's nice. It's kind of cute. They're into, they have a bit of a crush on each other. That's what
this is sort of like the first major indication that she has a thing for Brian as much as he has a thing for her.
Yeah, and it's sweet. It's quite sweet.
She stopped doing her homework and decided to get ready for the party. And once again, Vince is going to start causing problems, as we know. Vince, not a fan of Brian. But of course, Mia steps in and she wants Brian to get her a drink. And of course, he goes for the classic drink you have at every party, the Snapple.
A Snapple, yeah. And I'm wondering, are they sponsored by Snapple?
It's hard to tell. They don't overtly say it's a Snapple or anything. They kind of just hand it to her. And that's it. And it's the only time it appears in the movie, as far as I can tell.
Alright.
I do like to imagine there was just one Snapple in sort of an ice box with a post-it on it saying "For Mia only," because of course she is the only person drinking a Snapple.
She's the only person allowed to drink something that isn't Corona, and that brings us back to family, a major theme.
I do find it interesting that in this scene, when Dom is annoyed with his crew, Letty's cure for this is that Dom should give her a massage after his stressful night.
And then he seems reluctant, and she insists.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And then, of course, Dom points out that Brian still owes him a 10-second car.
Yeah. Because he hadn't accepted delivery yet, and therefore the fact that the car was blown up, even though it was Dom's fault for apparently sleeping with a woman who had a dangerous brother. Weird ownership vibes there. We won't get into it. So I'd like to read you my favourite moments from the remainder of the movie. One of these is so first of all, we do find out that Brian, trick on us, he is a police.
He is an undercover cop, that is correct.
And he's infiltrating the lads because of the Panasonics.
Yes, this is apparently a huge crime because apparently they've stolen $6 million. $6 million worth of Panasonics.
I have written down $6 million of Panasonics, and then I've put in parentheses, how many Panasonics is that? Because it's at 2001 inflation rates, so that's a lot. So they're investigating for this reason.
It's here that we meet Brian's sergeant, though. And while Lance may be your favorite character, I feel like the sergeant might be mine.
Oh.
I like his fatherly instincts towards Brian throughout the movie.
And I don't want to keep harping on about it. Family. It's all about family. He's really a dad, even though it's just his boss. He really acts as a father figure.
Brian's stressed out about the undercover work he's in. He asks for a cigarette, but of course the Sarge remembers that he's trying to quit. He's not allowed a cigarette, so he tells the other cops, don't give him any. He needs to get off of this addiction that he has.
And it's really sweet.
It is, and it's for Brian's own good.
It is, and I really enjoyed that scene, actually.
And they do have a few heart-to-hearts throughout the movie discussing how Brian's feeling and, the stress of what he's under.
And how he's falling for Mia, who is, potentially part of the gang who is potentially causing the big crimes, but they don't know yet.
Yes.
So when Brian is investigating, he goes on a big roof.
Correct.
And this is one of the best parts of the movie, where Brian goes up on the roof, and the roof, let's say the roof is 10 meters long. They clearly have an amount of time that they want the shot to last. And if actor Paul Walker runs at an actual normal speed, he will reach the end of the roof too quickly. And so instead, he elects to do this sort of weird, slowed down hopping run.
He does. It's a very springy jog.
Yeah, springy is a good word. But he bounds across the roof.
He does bound across it, and it is probably one of the best shots for it could be physical comedy. Just looking at it with the way it's shot, it's just odd.
Yeah, and Luke, I believe we marked that particular scene, didn't we?
We did. It is at exactly 46 minutes and 56 seconds.
Yeah, so Luke, you purchased the movie on YouTube to support the artists. And we looked at the like-dislike ratio, it was pretty solid. We looked at the comments, got very excited, because there were no comments on The Fast and the Furious, the movie. But we did later find out that it's due to the way that the comments work on movies. They don't want you to be free. And so we thought, there's no comments, there should be one comment. And what did you say, Luke?
I feel a great sense of privilege to know the treatment of women has progressed to such a state that we no longer view women as merely objects or trophies to be won. Looking forward to cracking open a Corona with my family and discussing the way our views on gender have changed since this landmark in cinematic history. The timestamp, 46 minutes and 56 seconds. And the emoji,
nice.
People wrestling.
People wrestling.
People, you know,
People
men can wrestle, women can wrestle, they can wrestle together
People.
if they like.
Most importantly, people can wrestle.
Yeah.
And that's you know, Luke, that is a slam dunk. That is a slam dunk of a comment.
Wrestling isn't bound by gender.
No.
And
okay, I'd like to take you on now. So he does the very weird run on the roof.
I'd like to give just a short outline of the rest of the plot.
Do, please.
So, Brian owes a 10-second car. He brings a very beaten up Toyota Supra to Dom. They agree to fix it up, and Dom tells Brian about race wars.
Now, Luke, that's my next note, is all caps, race wars, and then about 8 question marks.
Yes, it is poorly named. You do not want to tell people that you've been to a race war or wars.
The biggest event in the movie is called Race Wars. And not only this, they typically arrange their starting lineup by racial stereotypes.
Do they?
Oh, they often do. I mean, you have the Asian guy who's playing the video games in his car. And
yes, indeed.
You have a guy who is credited as Rasta Racer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I do remember this now. He's the person who races Letty at Race Wars.
And he makes a big mistake.
He also objectifies women poorly.
He does.
And
she shows him what's what. We do like... Letty does show them what's what. Shout out Michelle Rodriguez. Really making it happen.
Yeah. You know, Brian, works his way into the gang, and he sort of begins to kind of, I think, enjoy the sort of culture they have in street racing. He goes to the family barbecues that Dom has, where we learn the first to reach in to get the food is the person who says grace. Vince doesn't like that Brian's there. There's a lot of tension. And eventually it ends up with Mia and Brian going out on a date.
Ooh.
And then we reach the point where we see Brian's very springy bounding. And after his bounding and checking out the garages of Hector, who bought a lot of parts for Honda Civics, the cars from the start of the movie, he looks through them and he sees that Hector isn't the guy responsible. He really is legit.
After all this time, full circle, he is legit.
And Vince catches him doing this and knocks him out and takes him to Dom. And for all that's wrong with Vince as a person, I have to say his instincts are spot on.
He's a pretty good judge of character.
Yeah, he immediately says that Brian is a cop. But of course, Dom now sees Brian as family, kind of. And, family couldn't be a cop because he's family.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. He would never betray Dom.
He would never betray him. But Vince is correct.
He is, yes. And so, eventually they go to Johnny Tran's garage, and he has... he's just working on his car for Race Wars, and they bring a mechanic in. And then Lance, being the genuinely terrifying human he is, kind of tortures the mechanic.
Yeah, I have written that down. Lance is genuinely terrifying. Yeah. I think he almost waterboards him with oil.
Yes, it's quite scary. And he does have the most lacking in emotion on his face. Like, he has a look of just complete disinterest or dissociation from the situation.
It is a petrifying dissonance that you witness.
Yeah, he is more of a villain than Johnny Tran ever will be.
Yeah.
What's
Let's get... What's the actor? Actor's name is Reggie Lee. Shout out Reggie Lee. Excellent job.
Great job.
Great job.
He's a real high point of the movie.
He is. He's a real highlight. And Lance, he's not pretending to be a good guy at all. He knows what he is.
Yeah, he knows what he is. Johnny's sort of caught up in the whole... He's trying to be a family man as well as the criminal side of him.
He's caught up in the ego of it all.
So after they leave the garage, Brian saw the DVD players in there, Panasonic ones, and he organizes a raid, and he has Johnny arrested and all of his gang arrested. And I hate to say it, but Lance kind of goes down pretty easily in this scene. He gets thrown to the floor by the SWAT guys quite easily.
I'm hoping that Lance realizes that by resisting he could harm the position of Johnny. He's quite loyal.
Yeah.
And thus he does not.
That is a good point.
You're welcome, Reggie. Saved you.
But after this happens, Brian, he's still hanging out with Dom because, he's sort of, kind of switched to the other side, or he's kind of become compromised by his situation. These people are his friends now. He doesn't want to leave them just because he's a cop. And Dom kind of tells him his backstory. Earlier on in the movie, one of the cops says that Dom beat up a mechanic with a wrench and nearly killed him, and that's why he was in prison. But it's here we learn the full story, which is that Dom's father was a racing driver, and another driver caused him to crash into a wall and die. And because of that, Dom got very angry and hit the man with a wrench a lot of times.
As a young man.
And it's clear that he doesn't feel great about it. He doesn't seem happy or proud of himself that he did it. Growth as a person. He doesn't like the fact that he gets angry like that. And it's here that we learn why Dom loves racing, because he lives his life a quarter mile at a time.
Because for those... How many seconds?
10 seconds or less. He's free.
10 seconds. He's free. And that's really that's a box office quote of this movie. You'd see it everywhere.
And here's where we're also introduced to the Dodge Charger that sort of becomes an iconic car throughout the series. Which
it was his father's.
Yeah. But it has 900...
And he's never had the courage to drive it.
Yeah. 900 horsepower. He's scared of it.
Off the starting line, it just tore out the axle or something.
Something along those lines.
So much horsepower. So many horses in that car.
And then we cut to Race Wars, where Brian, with his new shiny Toyota Supra, and Dom and the gang all go to sort of, show how good they are as racers. And it's here where I've noted that men are terrible, women are wrong.
Yeah. This rears its head again at Race Wars.
Mm-hmm. This is what contributes to the race with Letty.
Can I say here, Luke? I drew an interesting comparison that I would like to bring to you, and that is, street racers and car people are a lot like gay people and drag queens.
They are?
Now, do you know why?
I'd like you to tell me. I'm curious.
So one of my favorite quotes from drag queens Katya Zamolodchikova and Trixie Mattel is that they like to witness the fear and confusion on a straight person's face when calling anything that isn't a cis woman she. And like they'll say anything. They'll say like, "Oh, my brother. Oh, she's really getting it right now. She's really going through it." And then people will become very confused and scared. When really it doesn't matter. It's not important. We understand what's happening. But car people, Luke, they insist on referring to their vehicles as she.
They do.
And I always found that a bit strange until I drew the comparison and I thought, you know what, it doesn't matter. It could be anything.
Could be. That is an interesting...
And I don't know, given the language in the movie, Luke, given the language, I don't know if they feel the same way. That's all I'll say.
That is an interesting parallel you've put forward. I would be interested to see if Vin Diesel agrees with that within.
We'll get him on next week.
Yeah. I'll hit him up on Instagram and see what he thinks.
I'll send him an email.
Yeah. So we actually only see 2 races at Race Wars. It's actually a very small set piece for the movie. We see Letty versus the man who objectifies women. Mm-hmm. And we see Jesse, one of Dom's crew, against Johnny Tran. And
a really unfortunate scene.
Jesse seems to have kind of, been inspired by Brian because he's racing for pink slips. He's betting his Volkswagen Jetta against Johnny's Honda S2000. And wouldn't you know it, Cian, Jesse loses, unfortunately.
And it wasn't just any Jetta.
It was his dad's Jetta.
It was his dad's Jetta.
Yeah. His dad is in prison, of course, and they were hoping to reunite and drive around with the Jetta they built together.
And so it's a real strange move for him to pink slip it against the boss of another group, but fine, whatever. He does it, he freaks out, and instead of coming back to give the car as is required by street law,
he drives away. Off. Yeah.
Drives away. He scatters, he flees.
And Johnny Tran obviously has a problem with this. He's had a rough few days. He's been arrested in front of his family, no less. And, he confronts
We should
Dom.
point out, by the way, the only thing that causes Jesse to lose and Johnny to win in the race, the only thing is Nos.
Is Nos. Jesse uses his too soon, and then Johnny uses his and wins.
Yeah, So Nos, pretty much determining the outcome of everything again.
It is the kind of magic fuel that wins races in this movie, at least.
I hope that changes.
And so Johnny confronts Dom and kind of tries to imply that Dom is a snitch and that he's been sort of giving information to the cops, which of course isn't true because we know that Brian is in fact undercover. But we sort of see the kind of anger that led to Dom attacking that other racing driver before when he attacks Johnny. And Cian, I hate to say it again, but Lance goes down pretty hard when Letty hits him.
Oh my god. Well, no, I mean, I'll give him that one. Michelle Rodriguez would absolutely knock me out. And so I
agree with that, but, you hate to see it when it's Lance.
You hate to see Lance going down at all, I suppose. But at the same time, if there was someone who was going to do it, that's who I'd pick.
Yeah. Eventually, though, Vince and Leon pull Dom away from Johnny and sort of take him away to calm him down. And we sort of, move forward towards the nighttime when Brian hears Dom and Mia arguing about something, and we can only assume it's about another heist for the trucks, because if Johnny Tran didn't do it, then obviously Dom is the last person on the list.
But we did find out something about the truck heists earlier, and that is that the truckers are sick of it and they have begun to arm themselves against the heists.
They did, yes. This is what the man from the FBI warned them of. The truckers had enough, and so this is what's going to happen now. It's dangerous for Dom and his crew. So Dom and his crew drive away to get the Honda Civics they use for the heists, and Brian goes to confront Mia, and he reveals that he's a cop. Once she's kind of unwilling.
He says, I'm a police. Yeah,
I'm a police. And she's obviously quite upset because that means that he has, of course, been lying to her the entire time.
And he was perhaps using her and her emotions to get more information.
Although we know
horrible
that,
stuff.
We know that because we've been seeing it from Brian's perspective that this isn't the case.
To him, it's real.
Yeah, surprisingly, because he's probably one of the only men who doesn't objectify women throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, that is actually correct. I don't ever see him treat a woman as a trophy. He just kind of has a nice romance with Mia, except for the fact that he is lying constantly.
We then sort of we we end up at the point where Brian and Mia are trying to find Dom and his crew as they're trying to pull off their last heist. In broad daylight, by the way. They've kind of gotten rid of the whole nighttime thing and have decided that in the middle of the day, in the desert, is the perfect place to do it.
Yeah. I mean, the desert, wide open spaces.
I mean, the cars aren't necessarily going to drive particularly well off of the road, but
I guess they can see someone coming from a long way away. Is that helpful?
maybe. Of course, Brian uses his cop resources to find Dom, and the heist goes sideways is the easiest way to explain it. The truckers are prepared.
Yeah, Vince goes up in the truck like before, but the man has a shotgun and Vince is kind of stuck hanging on the truck and he's going over to the side and the man's trying to shoot him. The man has infinite ammo.
And eventually, it ends up that Vince gets his arm wrapped in the wire from the spear gun or whatever you want to call it that they're using to help hijack the trucks. And he's sort of trapped on the side and it's up to Dom to try and save him. But
because Letty has gone off the road.
Yeah, Letty has had a very significant crash that would be extremely worrying for anyone.
But she's kind of just fine.
There is an interesting point here where Dom, who has a punctured tire from the man shooting at him, sends Leon, who has a perfectly working car, back to go after Letty, while he continues to drive on after the truck.
And that, I guess that's because he's the boss, but it is not a good use of resources.
Of course, Brian and Mia show up, and together they save Vince. And Vince is very badly hurt from his poorly attempted heist.
He's received the shotgun bullet in him.
In his stomach, apparently. Yeah. So Brian calls in a helicopter using his cop resources again. And this is where Dom finds out. And of course, Dom looks extremely angry once he finds out.
Dom is witnessing the police happening and just kind of looking at Brian, but they can't really hash it out now because they got to get that helicopter.
Yeah, and eventually the helicopter gets there and it gets Vince away. But of course, the crew has to disappear, so Dom and Mia and Leon and Letty all drive away in their Honda Civic. And, Brian drives after them and, he meets up with Dom and Mia at the house and he's trying to, calm down Dom, who has a shotgun and his dad's Charger all ready and raring to go. And who shows up, Cian?
It's fucking Jesse.
Yeah, it is Jesse. And it's at this point that the plot remembers that Jesse is a thing they have to deal with.
Yeah, Jesse exists. Got to wrap that one up.
And Jesse, he's flustered and he's all apologetic and he's sad that he's embarrassed Dom. Mm-hmm. And Dom's like, it's fine. Just come over here and get in the house because that's where it's safe. But of course,
Jesse is like, I'm sorry that I fled the race war. I know I should have stayed at the race war.
I know how important the race war is.
Yeah.
Should we call our podcast Race Wars?
I don't think that is a good idea.
Hi, welcome to Race Wars.
Hi, we're two white men. Race Wars is what we're calling it.
Yeah. But yes, Johnny Tran and Lance show up yet again. And what did they do, Cian?
They shoot an awful lot of bullets, many of which miraculously miss Dom, and many of which, not so miraculously, do a big kill on Jesse. And when I say do a big kill, I do mean instantly.
Yeah, he does instantly die. There's no sort of protracted or prolonged death scene where he's, saying goodbye to Dom or anything.
They don't even consider helping him.
They don't, no. He's kind of just an afterthought, to be honest.
They would rather go after Johnny Tran, who they know who it is. They could just go after him later. But they would rather go after him now than attempt calling an ambulance or anything like this. And I was quite taken aback by that.
I do firmly believe that Lance was the one to fire the killing shot at Jesse.
You think that Johnny was just kind of firing bullets into the into the ether, and Lance was actually trying to kill people?
Yeah, I feel like Johnny was shooting at the house and just missing everything. Because I don't think any of the bullets actually like hit any of the cars or any of the other people.
Yeah.
It just seems to hit the front
Harmless
garden,
bullets. Some
the
harmless
house, and Jesse.
And then
Yeah,
then Lance,
I feel
Lance
like
has a laser beam that he shoots directly into Jesse's heart.
Lance has perfect accuracy and is able to get literally every shot on target.
In a drive-by on a motorcycle with an Uzi in one hand and not aiming.
And then, of course, a chase comes about. Both Dom and Brian drive off, leaving Jesse's body bloody and dead just there, with sort of kind of no real consideration about it. They also just leave They also just leave Mia there to deal with it.
Yeah, you take care of this. We're gonna go get the men.
Yeah, and it ends up with kind of Dom chasing down Lance, because Dom obviously knows that Lance was the killer, and Brian, who's is chasing down Johnny Tran, and it ends up with Dom kind of running Lance off the road, and he falls off his motorbike and down a hill. But other than that, Lance seems kind of fine.
That's the thing, is Lance is still around. He's at large.
Yeah, Lance with his cold, dead eyes is...
To whom is he loyal now?
Wandering the streets of LA.
If I've ever seen a lawful evil, it might be Lance.
Yeah, potentially wandering the streets looking for revenge.
You never know.
But, you know, it does end up with Brian catching up to Johnny and shooting Johnny in the back and killing him instantly, much like Jesse.
Yeah.
And so that's the sort of... This leads up to the final drag race of the movie, where Dom also shows up at the scene, sees that Johnny is dead, and they stop at the traffic lights, waiting for them to go off as they have one final drag race together.
In a not dissimilar fashion from a later movie, in a scene that I have witnessed.
Mm-hmm. And so they wait for the lights to go green. That's their signal to go.
As it usually is.
Mm-hmm. And once they start, Dom's car immediately lifts off the ground.
Yeah, drag race style.
Yeah. Immediately it pops a wheelie, and Dom is seemingly unaffected by this. And they're sort of racing to beat a train that's coming over a railroad crossing. Very poor
And it's
decision
coming
making.
fast.
Poor decision making on their part. Very dangerous. And
it really seems like they shouldn't get past. It seems like they shouldn't, but they do.
How would you describe the rest of the scene, Cian?
Blindsided, Luke. Blindsided. They get past the train. Oh my goodness, we got past. And then a big truck T-bones Vin.
Well, it doesn't necessarily T-bone him. It kind of pulls in front of him, and then Vin kind of crashes half of his car in front of it, and then does a big flip.
In my mind, it's a perfect T-bone. Perpendicular.
And how is Vin after this horrific crash that would probably kill...
It's a really horrific crash.
Yeah, it would probably
kill... And he does big spin.
It would probably kill literally anyone on the planet.
Yeah, it does big spin. He's being thrown around in there. It's crushed to pieces. And then he does just kind of have a little bit of blood on his forehead.
Yeah. And his shoulder is... He's holding his shoulder as if it's sore. But...
Or maybe dislocated, you never know. And then he's just kind of fine. He just goes away. And Brian lets him go away in an act of friendship and familyship. And he just goes away. And then Brian, I guess, has to deal with the aftermath of Vin getting away.
Brian gives him the keys to the Toyota Supra,
which has not been T-boned.
Because he still owes Dom a 10-second car.
A 10-second car.
And there is a sort of, final look of respect between the two.
And Dom is like, "You sure? You sure about this?"
Yeah.
And he is.
He is. And Brian sort of walks off screen, and that's the end of the movie. There's no sort of, tying up of the rest of the plots,
Wow. So much for humble beginnings, Luke.
Yeah. It was a pretty good movie, considering it's 20 years old and kind of is generally mocked by most people.
Mm-hmm. It's not. It's political issues aside, and its treatment of some people aside. It's a relatively entertaining movie. I was surprised.
A lot of the CGI for like the X-ray shots of the car are entertaining moments, where you're like, oh, I see where a lot of the money went.
Yeah, and it's very silly that the entire conceit of the thing, which is racing, is just determined by sort of an arbitrary NOS mechanic.
Yeah. The only
that's
race,
a bit silly.
The only race where it's not really determined is the last one, because obviously Dom's Charger doesn't have NOS because it's his dad's car, and
but it has 900 horses.
It does. But Brian does use NOS just to keep up with it. But it's not like it's a race deciding factor.
Yeah, they're sort of hand in hand the whole way along.
But yeah, that's the movie. I did never point out the fact that the age of pretty much everyone is ambiguous.
Oh yeah, and isn't Dom... So Vin Diesel looks like he's, about 40.
I would say Vin Diesel actually looks quite young in this. I think Vince looks like he's about 30.
Yes, that was the really... I think you asked me how old is he supposed to be, and I said like 34 or something. And what age is he supposed to be in the movie?
I think he's meant to be like early 20s.
Yeah, he's not that.
Early to mid 20s. Because if Mia is still in college, or I hope not high school, because
I desperately hope.
I desperately hope, because she is doing homework at the party at the beginning. It would imply that like Dom's not that much older than her, so maybe like he's like 25 or something, or 26.
And he's really established for a 26-year-old.
Yeah, but Vince looks like he's mid-30s at best.
Yeah.
Which again kind of ups the slightly creepy factor of him kind of constantly annoying Mia.
Yeah. It's not good. But, okay, let's take all these things into account, Luke. We obviously can't do a wrap-up of how this ties into the universe yet, because this is the beginning.
This is the focal point of everything.
This is the inception of a lot of the themes, which I assume will carry through the other films. And so why don't you give me a rating? Look, I don't know what your rating system is going to be. I'm excited to find out.
I would like to rate it a solid 7 out of 10 Coronas.
7 out of 10 Coronas. If I'm treating 5 out of 10 as the average number of Coronas for a movie,
you can say whatever you want for the rating system. It could be 5 out of 10 NOS canisters, or 5 out of 10 Dodge Chargers. Whatever speaks to you about this movie.
So if 5 out of 10 human trophies is the average, then
yeah, that's a great.
I'm gonna give this movie 6 out of 10. And the reason for the 6 and not the usual average you get for a movie of the 7 is because, or even a 7.5. I think I'd give it a 7.5 if it were not for the fact that I was taken out of the fiction fairly often by my my reservations with some of the things that they were doing.
Considering those problematic stuff as well, I probably would drop it down to a 6, but if you can move past that, I think it's a solid 7.
We'll give it some acknowledgement of it being more normal at the time.
Yeah.
I'll accept your 7, but I will remain at a 6.
It's a product of its time.
Entertaining, but it gave me pause on a number of occasions.
It did.
That said, Luke, I want to see how the fiction develops, because I know nowadays we're getting Fast 9 any day now.
Fast 9 any day now.
And I have to imagine they're not doing that sort of thing in there. I think they're really hammering home family more, and not the objectification.
But we'll just have to wait and see for both of us, because not even I've seen Fast 9 yet.
Oh, wow.
Maybe we've already discussed our favorite sort of side characters. Yours being Lance, mine being Brian's sergeant dad. Any other favorites you'd like to point out? A favorite car, perhaps, or a favorite moment?
A favorite moment. I mean, it's the run. It's the run, Luke.
The run.
It's the bounding run across the rooftop that I made you stop and go back and watch about 3 or 4 times.
You did, yes.
Because I loved it so. It was so pure, so sweet and innocent.
It is a very good moment, but in retrospect, knowing what I know now, it's when Vin Diesel gets into the passenger seat of Brian's car and he has to awkwardly hover his feet over the missing floor.
After sitting in his car with no air conditioning for quite some time.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one.
So I assume next week we'll be looking at Too Fast, Too Furious.
We'll be tackling Too Fast, Too Furious, and with this one I have some experience with. I guess we should address our friends here, Luke, because none of them are here now. Nobody wants to hear this, and that's fine. It's not for them.
Yeah, this is very much a first episode, a pilot of a TV series, you might call it.
Absolutely, it's just the worst. The kind of thing we'll delete in once episode 2 is out.
We'll go back and redo Fast and the Furious at some point when we're more mature and we've learned more about family together.
Yeah.
I feel like together, once we've had, I dare say, a lot of our guests on that we've been planning to have.
We will have guests.
We could have a family event where we revisit the first Fast and the Furious.
Oh, family event.
And maybe that will prompt some interesting conversations about not only family, the main theme of this franchise, and Vin Diesel himself, but also social justice and how it's evolved since the early 2000s.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Mark. I have been Sinclair, and we hope to see you next time.